Today, we're looking at how we can support students at home. How can we help our children make life easier for themselves and for us? Now, looking at learning styles will help us do that. So, learning styles, there are 4 ways we learn. Today, you will learn to recognize learning styles and identify your child's preferred style. You will gain insights on how to approach your homework and maximize learning by using the learning style. And you will learn how to communicate to each learning style by using the appropriate language. You will find that we have a language according to how we learn, the way we talk. All right. Now, so what are learning styles? Well, every child is born ready to learn. Every child is a gift. You remember that from my book. Children are gifts to us. Because they're gifts, they each are very unique. So if you have more than one child, really be prepared for the difference because no child is the same. We're all unique. So every child is born to learn. Yet children and adults generally have a preferred learning style in which they learn best. A child may learn through a combination of styles, but usually there's one style he or she favors over the others. But we need to use all 5 styles to have maximum learning. We want to be able to verbalize this. What did you learn tonight? A learning style is the way we take in information and the way we use the information that we perceive, the way we take it in and how we use it. Now, somebody said, well, why should I learn about this? Why should I know about learning styles? Well, when we understand our own learning style, I can accept and appreciate the differences in others, in my children, and plan ways to respond. Plan those ways. Now, actually, in simplicity, the learning styles is basically our 5 senses. And this is sometimes we take for granted, but everything we learn comes from hearing it, seeing it, touching it, smelling it, or taste it. That's how we learn everything. So these 5 senses, it makes it possible for us to learn. That's where learning styles come from. Modes of learning is what it's been called because some scientists came up with, we can use modes of learning instead of senses. And there's modalities in our brain that are working to make these things happen. Help us see, feel, taste, touch. Now, so in the modes of learning, we have put them into 4 categories. Visual, you're going to say, I saw it. Tactile, you made it. You did something with your hand. Experiential mode is I did it too with all of these things. And then the auditory mode is, yeah, I heard it. I heard you say. All right, so those are the 4. Now, so the style in which we see, hear, feel, and perceive things best, and the way we process or use what we've seen, heard, or feel. Now, I thought as a parent, the most exciting thing for me was the day I did understand who I was and what my learning style is. And I learned this way back when I was a child. My mom was also a teacher, so she understood that and she helped me see that I'm a visual person. And when we see that and you understand who you are, it makes life so much easier. You don't have to ask, well, why can't I remember that? It's because you're not that person. You are you, and that's the way you're going to see it and perceive it. So where do they come from? Some come with you at birth, but our society demands our present situation and our past experience influences our learning styles. But let's look. Why should I know? Let's repeat. When I understand my own, I can accept, appreciate the differences in others, and plan ways. See, tonight, this is our emphasis. Planning ways to meet my child's homework needs. Now, I wanted to find out if you could put in the chat the age of your children, what grades maybe, what grade they're in. And that would help me to make sure I key in on that age and grade. If you do that for me, that'll be good. And you can let me know in the chat who does that for me. All right. The most common learning styles, we're going to put them in these 4 categories: visual, auditory, tactile, kinesthetic, and experiential. So, you know, senses, we had the olfactory, where we smell, the tactile, the kinesthetic, where we feel, touch, taste, all of those things, all of those senses, the taste and the smell, all of that has been put into the tactile, kinesthetic. And the experiential goes for all of them. They like to do it all. And many people are multi-sensory learners. Now, finally,
would you like me to tell you the ages that they posted?
Sure would.
Okay, great. So we have 3rd, 5th grade, 6th grade, 10th grade, 12th grade, 9th, 7th, 4th, a pre-K, and I think those are all the ones. Oh, in a 4th grade, we said 4th grader, yeah. So we have a variety of grades.
That's right. And the pre-K is the lowest, and seems
Yes.
like you said 3rd was the next highest. Yeah.
Let's see. Yes, 3rd.
All right, very good. So I think in the advertisement they said middle or high school. So I just wanted to see if that happened tonight. Thank you so much. We have such a variety. That's great. Now, what we want to do is see, I want you as a parent to think of yourself right now, just you, and what you like to do each day. So your life is going this way because of the learning style. Because of your learning style, you will get up in the morning and do a certain thing. You will go to bed at night and do a certain thing. You will work through the day in your work and your job situation a certain way because of your learning style. Now, just to give you a few examples, we've had people say, okay, you want to get to a destination. Okay, you want to go somewhere. You need directions, right? Okay. Because you need directions, you'll say, oh, just write them down for me. Well, that's a visual person. They need to see it. Then someone else will say, oh, just tell me how to get there. Who is that? Auditory person, right? And then there will be someone who says, well, can I follow you? That's a kinetic person. They just want to be with, they want to be with you. They want to touch it, right? So those 3 things really give us clues to who we are. Now, my husband plays the piano, and I'll give him some music and I'll say, honey, will you play this so I can see how it sounds? He says, see how it sounds? Yeah, see how it sounds, because I'm a very visual person and I see music. We say things like that. So see is the key to a visual person. If someone says, I don't get it, it just doesn't sound right, then that child is telling you, I need to hear it. And if we say, well, let me show you, that's seeing it. He needs to hear it. So you could say, well, let me tell you again, or listen to it this way. See, that helps in the learning. But I just wanted to give those examples just for you to think about it. Now, they have even done studies on people where they sit in theater or church or wherever they are. The people that are tactile kinesthetic, where do you think they sit? Yeah, up close, very close. So they can just see the person's eyes and feel their presence. Well, what do you think the visual person says? It might be in the middle where I can see it. Sometimes visual people like me like to get up close too. And the auditory person will probably say, I'll sit back here as long as I hear it. That's all that matters. So each person has their own way of approaching life. So let's look at, now we're here to talk about your children and how you're going to help them. So let's get in our mind the visual words that go with each learner. Okay, the visual learner is who they are. They approach learning through what? Their eyes. Now, see, this may sound really simple, and it is, but when we apply it and remember how to look at your child, to look at them in this way, to look at yourself in this way. So that's why I'm being redundant in some cases, saying these things over and over. Who are they? Visual people use what? Their eyes. Now, I'll tell you what they say. Your child, the visual learner, is likely to use phrases like, guess what I saw today at school? Hey, Mom, can you picture this? Oh, that looks like blah, blah, blah. They're going to use those visual words to explain their life, what happened that day. Now, the auditory learner, who they are. Auditory learners are like tape recorders. Their minds record what they hear and also process the information, and they remember it. So you'll tell one of your children something that you want them to do tomorrow when they get home from school, and say the auditory learner is there and the visual learning is there. Well, you told the auditory learner and the visual learner the same information. But guess what? If the visual learner didn't see it in some way the way you told it, they may not remember. But the auditory learner might, because they're like a tape recorder. They just remember it. That's just the way their brain works. That's what my husband is. He's an auditory learner. And all I have to say is do it and say it. And that's it. He loves to listen to talk shows. That's auditory children. If children like to listen to things, they're auditory. Okay. And they might say, oh, I hear it. Oh, yeah, it sounds like, I'd like to hear it. If they're working on, we'll give some examples later on too. If they're working on a project in science, they like to hear how this project is going to work. May not make sense, but you've got to remember, you have to use those words in order to help them learn. All right. The kinesthetic learner, who are they? Kinesthetic learners are hands-on people, physical and mental team. They team up together to help this person learn, to give meaning and purpose to what they learn. What they saw, they say, oh, it feels good. It rubs me this way, Mom. Look, yeah, it's good. And they were able, when that child comes home and tells you about their day, they are telling you what kind of person they are. So what this meeting tonight does, I hope you're able to listen to what your child is saying and be able to define their learning style so that you'll know what to do when they're having trouble with their homework. All right, so, and that person, the child, the experiential learner, people who like to be involved in practical real life experiences, these are children who like to use a combination of the learning modes to achieve what they learn. Now, this child is probably the one that gets labeled ADHD. And the teacher said, well, he won't be still. He won't be quiet if it's auditory, like to talk. He won't look at me. He wants to talk all the time. Or he wants that experiential learner learns from a combination of learning modes. They don't have ADHD. That's just the way they are. And I'll explain as a teacher what you need to do as a parent if you see your child having trouble here. Okay, so let's review. The question they ask, the statements that they make. In the tactile mode, they'll say, look what I made, something they did. What questions do they have? The visual mode says what? Well, you guess what I saw today? They like for you to think like them. Well, you go in your head and say, I don't know, what could it? If you're visual, you'll probably visualize something. If you're auditory, you'll probably say, hey, you heard this, or you did, and kinesthetic, you did this. So you will use words that you think about. And they're asking, guess what I saw? So the question the auditory man will be, guess what I heard. See, they heard the teacher say this, or they heard a child say this to them. Now, so you may have this child who is auditory and someone has said something to them verbally and they are hurt. So you have to really watch it, because if they say, well, somebody said something to me, that's the auditory child wanting you to listen to what did they say. We can't push it off and say, oh, don't worry about it. Just go on and do your homework. Or, that is your key right there, your time to listen. Tell me more. What did you hear? And they know that you care, that you really love them, because you want to stop and listen to what they heard. What was hurtful for them today? Okay, the experiential was, guess what I did? What did I do today? Action. And they want to be able to express that. Whereas other child may not. They may not tell them. They may just say, okay. And that's it. So you will get different responses from different children. Now, I want to tell you as parents what we want to never do. We want to never compare. I'll say that again. Never compare. Because if you go, Johnny, why don't you see what Susie's doing over there, sitting quietly doing her homework? Why can't you be like that? That hurts. They can't be like that. He's not Susie. So that's one thing. If you learn nothing else tonight, if you remember nothing else tonight, I want you to remember never to compare. Never compare yourself with another parent. Oh, I wish I could get my children to do what. Never compare yourself or your children or their children. It only hurts. That means we're not accepting each other as they are. And later on in the slide, I'll say it now, being different doesn't make us wrong. It's just different. All right. Now, so the question is, how can I help my child that has these learning styles? How can we help? Now, with the visual, we have some 5th graders, 6th graders, even the 12th graders, and even with the babies, we can use the same thing. If you have whiteboards at home, we used to call them chalkboards, but they're whiteboards. And you can, even on the computer, they can write on the computer now. You know that, right? We have iPads that you use the pen, they call it. You can write on the computer. But writing so they can see it, that helps them learn. Okay, so say for an example, your teacher your child has a homework and the teacher is given a sheet of paper, right? And there's something blanks there for them to fill in. Well, if they're visual, it would be smart for have them write those same words on another sheet of paper themselves so they can see it. They can make a chart of whatever the lesson is about. You'll say, oh, Mom, I finished my homework. Then that's the time to see. Now, if you know it's a visual person, you know what questions you're going to ask them. If it's auditory, you know what questions you will ask them. And that means that they are learning it. It's not, I just did something and finished it. But this way, they will be able to go, if you have a pop quiz that next day, they'll know it because they know what they did. They understand it. They can verbalize it. Drawing pictures. And sometimes a child, I have seen as a teacher, children can scribble while you're reading a story. It's okay. Let them scribble. They can draw pictures while you're reading a story. Let them be who they are. Some children are so artistic, they can draw beautiful pictures while you're reading a story to them. Or while you're even talking to them. You're sitting up there talking to them and they may be scribbling. That's them. Let it be. Make a list of things. Like if you want certain things to happen after school, make a list. Just make a little chart and have it, staple it, tack it on your wall or wherever, whatever you want to use, so that they will see. See, you've told them, and that auditory child was going to remember what you told them. But that visual child, if they see that little list, oh yeah, I remember, supposed to do this today. See how easy it is? Okay, So this is now with the auditory, how can we help them? They like to what? Hear. We have cell phones, right? Let them record themselves reading their science homework, or reading their spelling words, or reading their story that they're supposed to read in geography or history. Record themselves and then listen back to themselves. And they'll enjoy hearing themselves anyway. But what it does is it helps them to remember it because they are auditory. Discussion is very important. What's being studied? Talk to them about it. Now, some afternoons I pick up my grandson who's 15 and he's a sophomore. And I said, tell me about your day. So he expects this every day. Tell me about your day. Well, I had math. I had STEM class. I had this and that. I said, now tell me something about each class. And he tells me. And that reinforces what they learned that day. And so you can ask, well, this quarter, what are you studying for math? They should know that. They should know the goal. The teacher should have told them what it is, the goal is for that semester in math. If you ask your ninth grader, I don't know, something's wrong. You just be very kind and say, well, I want you to know that. And if you don't know that, you know what I want? I want you to ask the teacher so you can tell me what the goal is. And the teacher, this auditory child, will probably give an answer because they've heard what the teacher said. Now, if the child is visual in 9th, 10th grade, whatever, and the teacher didn't use a visual aid, they may not remember it. But that doesn't mean that they're dumb. That doesn't mean that they're stupid. What we want to do is put labels on them, and we have to throw labels out. We have to throw them out. And accept the child as they are. Well, go ask Johnny. He knows what I told him yesterday. Well, sometimes if you do that right, see, when we teach our children, you're very visual. And then, Micah, you are very auditory. So when I say something, Micah, since you're very auditory, I know you heard what I said. Could you tell your brother? That's all. And the brother will start looking to him to get auditory cues rather than competing or being like him. So you're using their strengths to help each other. So talk about the new concepts they're learning. How do you want them to be able to express themselves if we don't listen? We have to listen. Now that takes time. And I realize that you're home, you're cooking dinner, whatever, but we can set a time aside at least once a week and have a family meeting and have everyone share what's going on in your life today. What are you learning in this class? Let them share, and they see the concern and the love you have because you take time. Just cut the TV off and take time to talk to your child. Okay, that's auditory. Any questions about auditory? How this helps with their retention?
Please feel free to either note it on the chat, or you can take yourself off of mute and ask questions.
Okay, let's look at the kinesthetic learner. You have to have them moving. They prefer acting out events. They love using all their senses. Have difficulty sitting still. So if they have been sitting 30 minutes doing this homework that has to be written out, guess what? They need to get up. And maybe they can run in place and tell you about it. Or maybe they can get a ball and bounce the information to you. Or a jump rope. If they're learning concepts in math, say what they are as they jump. Spelling words, jump each sound, each letter. So be creative. Act out what they did. And maybe if they're doing a project in science, let them do it. Say, okay, Mom, in this lesson today, we're using soda and this and this and this, and you have that in your home, in your kitchen, you say, that'd be cool. Let's do that experiment this weekend. And they'll be so delighted because you're showing interest. You're showing, I appreciate you because you like to do things with me. See, they're kinesthetic. So we have a sight, sound, and feeling. Those are the three things we want to remember: what they see, what they hear, and what they feel. Repeating: visual, see; auditory, hear; kinesthetic, feel. Now, we need to get into the words that we're using. We take for granted that we're just talking, but we have to be more, I think the word is concentrate, intentional when we speak to our children. The words we use, we can either use words that heal or words that hurt. And I know you as parents, we never want to hurt our children. So what we have to do is be intentional and confident that our words are words that heal. Because you know what, once they're out there, can't bring them back. Now, the other night I was at my daughter's house. She had back to school night. So I stayed there, and the 15-year-old, remember what I said he was doing? He had on his headphones and he was banging the table and doing his chemistry homework. He did it. He told me what he did. That's the way they learn. That's okay. Whereas the other child was sitting quietly on his iPhone doing his. He didn't have to make all that noise. He's not auditory. So the thing is, understanding their learning style will help you in understanding your child. And you want to try to make them all the same. And that's not going to work. So let's look at some sensory words. Under sight, what do you see? See, look, notice, observe, view. These are words that you're going to use when you're talking to your visual child. Sound, auditory child. Hear, listen. Bell, the bell may be you. Sometimes it's very, very effective to have a bell that rings at a certain time, that this child, can finish his homework in 10 minutes. So put the bell on. That auditory child would love it. It's okay, I'm gonna finish this before the bell rings. Yeah, and make things fun. Feeling, these words, tough. Is it tough today? Was it rough? This is a rough class today. Did you get stuck on a problem? Delicate, be soft, kind, gentle. That's delicate. These are sensory words. Now let's look. With the phrases, you may use an eye feel full, see it? Oh, that was clear as a bell. That's auditory. Give me an ear, listen. Then the kinesthetic, pull some strings, come to grip with me. Do you understand it? Do you feel how you feel it? You feel it feel good? Mm-hmm. And that way they understand, and they know you understand when you were talking their language. Now let's look at this one. I wanted to tell you again, being different isn't wrong. It's just different. So I want to explain this. How we're doing with time? How many minutes?
Yeah, we're still good. We're at 6:35 right now.
Great.
Mhm.
Now, if we have students struggling during these challenging times, we have to uncover their unique learning style. So this is a little awkward. I mean, parents say, well, I don't have time to do this. But it's important to take time. So why is my child not learning? What is making school so difficult? If their learning style is not being addressed, this student may need coursework uniquely presented to them to effectively absorb the material. Now, what that is saying is they might have to have a tutor, because in a classroom, it depends on the size of the classroom. I had no more than 20 students. So as a teacher, I was able to use the space in my classroom to meet the needs of each learning style. So if I knew that this child over here needed to be over in a space, jumping up and down or laying on the floor and writing rather than in a chair, they had the opportunity to do that. However, many teachers are not doing that, not really looking at the different ways people learn. And so your child might need a tutor that would be able to help them in that area. Because if we depend on the teacher and it doesn't happen, that's why we have, and that's why you're here. So you can know yourself what to do to help your child learn better. So it is also a very important thing for us to remember to realize the importance of filtering the input that goes into their senses. In our society, remember what comes on Facebook, what comes on your internet, what comes on your television, what our children hear, see, taste, touch, smell will have an effect on their lives and influence their destiny. Now, I hope you don't feel overwhelmed by the things I've been saying, but you might feel that way at first, but I want you to think about how important it is to show your child that I care. I care enough about you to learn how you learn. And as we said in the beginning, if you know how you learn, then you can better explain to them how they learn. And never compare, but always remember to ask them to help each other. If one is visual and one is auditory, one is kinesthetic, they can all help each other. They can go in the kitchen, say, for example, and that kinesthetic child, we're going to put all the stuff together to make whatever you're cooking. Maybe the child that's the visual one, well, I'm writing out what we're supposed to do after each thing. So they can see it work together and not compete with each other. Now, I want to give you an opportunity to share what your concerns are and how you feel you can help with this learning style. So I'm going to give you some examples first and ask you, how do you feel about doing it? Remembering that all of us are unique geniuses. What did I say? Unique geniuses. So let's accept who we are and be grateful to be you. Now, what I wanted to explain, let's go back a minute. The sensory words. I explained this in my book. I want you to get this word. Okay. Now I was saying, what we have to remember is when we're talking to the auditory child, we use words that look like these. I mean, sound, ear, taste, listen, sight, visual are the feeling words. Now, as I was explaining in my book, sometimes we'll say, a child says, well, Mom, I don't see it. And then you say, didn't you hear me? I said it 5 times already. But what you're using auditory sound words when they said, see it. So what are we going to do? Now, on your handout, I have some examples of what, if you say something, what would be your word that you would use to talk to that child in whatever that learning style is. If he says, Mom, that just doesn't look right to me. What is look? Auditory. I mean, visual. So if you go, oh, it doesn't look right to you. Well, let me tell you one more time. Well, that went to auditory. When he said, look, you need to see it. So I said, okay, look at it this way, honey. Let me show you here. Look. Seeing it, saying the right words, because they get discouraged. If you say, I just don't see it, and you're saying, well, I told you 5 times, it's okay. It's just, you just call them names and things like that. And that hurts. They need to see it. And as Sylvia says, okay, listen, you're using what? Auditory work.
Miss Neely, I
Yeah.
have a parent that has a great question. It says, can children learn in two ways, or is there always a dominant way of learning?
No, in the beginning, remember we read that many people choose all learning modes. They like their multiple ways for them to learn. But usually there is a one that you just kind of like. It's just if you're thinking about yourself, think about, what do you like to do? I like to hear it. I like to see it. I like to do it. Those three things you can identify, and then you can say, I know I'm a visual person. Oh, he's visual because he always wants to see things. So, but sure, they can have multiple ways to learn. And the maximum learning, see, if we're teaching them, actually, the maximum would be using all senses. So you let them see it, say it, and do it. Did that answer our question? Did anyone
Yes,
else?
thank you.
Okay. Do we need to go back anywhere? And how we can help, remembering how we can help with each one, what questions they ask that will give you the clue to who they are. And then in your handout, so you can go back and study over this and think about the visual learner's approach, the auditory learner's approach, how they will process. And see, this helps also, even though when I was telling you that when you decide what you want for this year, okay, right, the year's begun and you have a schedule, you have them to do certain things, certain days, or maybe each day they do a certain thing, then you can see it. They can have it written out for them to see it, the visual person. And it's very important to have it written out for them. Now, auditory person, you can say, oh, will you read this for us? Now, what is it we're going to remember to do this week? He can read it out loud. That'll help him remember it. And then the third child that maybe is kinesthetic, let them act it out. Is I'm gonna wash dishes when I first come in. I'm gonna sweep. Let him use his actions to express what's going to happen. And by the time you do that with the three children, everybody's heard it 3 times what you're going to do. And that's so exciting because everybody remembers, because we're talking the language of that learner. Okay, did someone else have a question?
No questions at this time at the on the chat. Please feel free to either write on the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, you can ask questions. We are actually now at close to 6:45. In a couple minutes, we are going to open it up for everyone to get an opportunity to ask questions, and we will stop the recording.
And at the back, I wanted you to continue to do your research, because there are other ways that children learn. And here, Bernice McCarthy, you could look up hers. It's she talks about 4 major learning styles in a different way. And also the Gregoric model looks at the perception and the ordering and how we learn. So all of these things, as a teacher and as a parent that really wanted to know as much as I could to help my child, I did. I look at all of those types of learning styles, and it really helps you. So feel free to continue your study, and feel free to just try these things and do what you think is best for your child.